Rockford and Heat coming at you.
Love it. Coming at you. Coming hot. 8:58. Let's do it.
Well, we're doing it because I don't have the intro music handy, so welcome to the podcast.
Dude, you gotta prep me for
No, let's just roll, dude. It's fun.
I love it, man. All right, yeah, no intro music. It's like waking up without your cup of coffee. Like I don't know what to do with myself. It's June 19th, the year. It's 2025. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 858.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a road trip action going on, so hopefully
this
works.
I feel naked without the intro music.
I know.
I know you're going to put it in at some point, but I feel like legitimately ill-prepared. Not that we're always the most prepared, obviously, but I feel like the music at least gives us it's like a little bit of an espresso shot. But nevertheless, you're on the road, we're doing it. Most people, hell, they don't even work when they travel. They just go on vacation and do their things. But here we are, making time out of our day. Beautiful day here, a little bit steamy, but hey, it's the summer. We should get used to it. To deliver a nice little podcast. Got a pretty good topic. I know it's a big racing weekend for those of you doing Rockford, so we're going to talk about that. It's one of our team races. A city and a town very close to Mike Trolley's heart. So we'll talk a little about the course, and then probably the biggest talking point, honestly, not just about the race this weekend, which looks like it could be a little on the warmer side, but the rest of summer. I mean, I had a couple athletes yesterday like, hey, it's so hot where I am. And I'm like, I know. Every single Train Peaks comments I opened on Monday all talked about how hot it was. And it's a rude awakening. We do it every year. We panic every year. And yet we also know what the hell to do every year to prevent ourselves from panicking, to prevent ourselves from getting too caught up in the numbers. And when it comes to racing, it's all about execution and effort. And there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate the heat and its effects on your body, whether it's heat prep, whether it's how you prepare before the race starts, how you manage your energy as the race moves on. But there's a lot of things you can do. We'll go over a lot of that today. But yeah, it's good to be here, and I'm excited to talk about Rockford. You'll be up there with the C26 crew this weekend, and are you excited to be in your quasi hometown for 70.3?
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, when I heard they announced it, because it's really right about where I used to live. I used to kind of live downtown, and I have way different impressions and memories of that city than a triathlon event. I'll tell you that much. But I do think like the city itself. I mean, downtown is actually, the riverfront is really a pretty place, and the buildings are cool down there and everything. I don't know what they've done. I know they've they have like a marina they built since I left, and there's a brewery, and there's some stuff happening. So hopefully they're ready to handle it from spectator and athlete perspective, because I think they're going to be. I don't know if they know what they're in for. With 2,700 athletes coming into town. I know they have things like 5Ks and that type of thing. Where they have maybe 500, 1,000 people, but this is going to be a massive sort of awakening for that city. I think hopefully it'll be a good thing, and they'll be like thinking about keeping it going, and how maybe it'll sort of revitalize some areas or something. I kind of always felt like when Chattanooga got Ironman that it sort of perked up the town. I mean,
sure.
I just have, that's just my instinct, but I just remember the old bike course when you rode out there. There was nothing for the first few miles, and now it's nothing but townhomes and beautiful condos and whiskey distillery. It's really. Mm-hmm. I kind of just wonder if that sort of jump-started that city a little bit at the time.
I think they've even told Ironman that it has. I mean, it wasn't that Chattanooga was, it was just kind of like one of these sleeping cities where there just wasn't bringing a lot of people in, and you bring, triathletes in that have, let's be honest, have a lot of disposable income. Not a lot, but, a lot of them do have, disposable income. It's not rare for some of them to have, like second homes or condos or investment properties. And I think that they would tell you, like, once you're bringing in, 5,000 complete strangers to the city that have never been there. And when you have a race like that, that's set in, at the base of all these mountains, and the bike course is beautiful and it's walkable and people can really check out the city, and it's just really easy to get to everywhere. It allows for, people to kind of, hey, it's kind of, I mean, hell, like that's why I moved there. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I was
No,
heading
I
home.
know
I was
we
heading
were.
home. Right. Yeah. I mean, I was heading home from Chattanooga when World 70.3 was in Chattanooga. I was on the way home and I looked over Alley and I was like, Hayden was still little. We went up there to watch some athletes race, and I was like, I was like, I'm not like asking to move, but I'm pretty sure I could live there. It's just gorgeous. And then next thing you know, we're like looking at houses and building a house. I mean, like, so I think for sure it's had an impact. And I think that's one of those. Like, I mean, I think St. George is the same way.
Mm.
So it's like and now Chattanooga's gotten so big, a lot of people don't want to race there because now the bike course is so crowded. I mean, you and I lived there, and it was just getting like overrun. So it is. I think it's very, a lot of these towns and, municipalities will tell you like, oh, we don't need you, we'll bring in the golf tournaments and, but like, it's not just the weekend, right? I mean, it's St. George now. It's just like, 10 years ago, you could have bought a house for a condo for cheap. And now it's just like dream home after dream home. And you look at the, how many people, and it's not all Ironman and not triathletes, but again, like they come down there, they come down the train, they bring more exposure, they take picture. I mean, it's all. So yeah, you don't just get the weekend. You're driving up home prices, and you're bringing people in. I mean, I think it's got a huge net positive. When I think people usually just like focus on the impact of the weekend itself, not just like the kind of the overflow, which again, I'm not sure you can measure. But for cities like this, you got to hope, like, that's their hope, right? Bring in for the weekend. We can put up with you for a weekend, but hopefully you're like a recon of the city, the downtown, the area. Will kind of help raise, raise some of the, you know, restaurants and condos and townhomes, and maybe just perk up the city a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that, there's going to be a lot of people from Chicago coming over, and they're going to be looking at, old commercial buildings, these cool old buildings, and say, I can get this for $250,000. Yeah, I'll just buy it for
Right.
that, just for hobby. So yeah, you never know. I mean, I always liked Rockford in a strange sort of way, and I think like I said, the course is downtown, and I think it'll be a good race. I really
I
do.
think so too. I think it'll be interesting. We'll talk about it here today, but I mean, the course thing is pretty simple. We can hit that up at the end, but I mean, anybody that's checked the weather, and if you haven't, you're about to. It's warm. It's going to be warm, and it's, to me, like, it's not even that it's unseasonably warm. And we talk about this a lot when we talk about like the races that we do podcasts in May. Like Chattanooga 70.3 is usually that. Eagle Man, they got a little spoiled this year. Eagle Man's usually one of those races. The early summer and the late quote unquote summer, like early fall races, to me are some of the hardest to, not really to prepare for, because at least if it's a early fall, late summer race, you've been training in the heat all year, right? So or all summer, so you're prepared. You just might have a better performance if the weather is a little bit cooler because the temps. If it's not, then you're have kind of on par. But for these early season races, I mean, it has not been that hot. And so you have to take that into account. So I get like so many athlete questions about how to prepare, what should I do, and the biggest thing to kind of, I think, understand and realize is if you didn't do any heat prep, then nothing you can do this week will be heat prep. It'll just be draining yourself fatigue wise.
Mm.
That's it. I mean, you can't hit up the sauna early this week and consider that heat prep. It's not. All you're going to do is drain your body. In fact, what I would tell you is stay away from it, because what you're going to need is your highest amount of, like, you top it off your energy, maxed out, feeling great, not any kind of your battery drained at all going into a race. It's going to be one, both physically, emotionally, and mentally demanding, but also from a heat standpoint, it's going to be really, really hard on the body. It's going to have these extra environmental conditions that are going to impact your race. So if you haven't done heat prep, doing your last little primer ride on Friday or Saturday in long sleeve shirt, no fans, big mistake. Like, you got to heat prep weeks and some people months out, right? So don't go in this week and don't spend, like, this is Thursday, so you're not going to have that much time to make stupid decisions between now and Sunday. But it's triathlon, and we're triathletes, so we never know. We're never at a loss for trying to make stupid decisions. But don't do that, right? Don't get to the hotel or go try to find a gym, sit in the steam room or the sauna. Just don't do it. And stay. In fact, the research says, the day before, 2 days before, stay out of the heat as much as possible. Hydrate, stay cool, because the name of the game is how low can I keep my body temperature for the longest. And so, we talk about, things you can do the days before the race. It's, drinking cold fluids, stay in a really, really cold, hotel room, make sure you're feeling good. I know some people in the past that have been training for like Ironman Texas that didn't live in a place where it's hot. And like the month before the race, they even did things like set their thermostat on, in their house at like 75 to 77, which to me just sounds fucking miserable. And then would turn the heat on their car every time they get in and wear like overclothes. Like all they were trying to do was, it's ridiculous things, right?
Well,
I'm like, dude, this is
it's good. It's funny.
right. It's just like people were just thinking, out of the box. Like, how can I slow? I mean, it's not dumb, right? Because you walk into your house, in the winter and 70 feels warm. And you walk into your house now and it's been 9,500 degrees and you've been in yard work, you walk in your house at 70 and it feels freezing. Right. So it's all relative, right? So these things, they're not stupid, but like these are all things you should have been doing a long time ago. So if you haven't done them, don't worry about not doing them. Just focus on what you can do, before. And so like, we'll kind of work our way through. Maybe we can just do, overview of things to do in the swim or pre-swim, and then all about the course, but also about how to control, your body temp as best you can. The biggest thing to me is race morning. What's the, the water temp situation? I mean, I can't imagine it's gonna be wetsuit legal. I'm putting you on the spot here.
I do not, and I'm not even going to guess
you
because
don't want the uproar.
Some people, seem to think it's still going to be. I mean, you got to remember that it hasn't been that hot yet, and that water's coming down from Wisconsin in the river. So I don't know. If I had to bet, I would say it probably still would be wetsuit legal, but I'm not going to bet. I just think that you bring up such an interesting point about heat acclimation, because I look at that almost sort of as sort of being undertrained. It's sort of, and then trying to make up fitness in the last week or so, because it's almost like that one day thing. You got to just, be prepared as much as possible, rested, and not overheated the whole week, because now you're depleting your everything. So it's just like, it's almost like you got to suck it up and figure out the ways to get the most energy possible you can have going into that day, instead of trying to force anything late. But anyway, yeah, the wetsuit thing, I don't know. I mean, I just can't
if it's wetsuit legal, unless you're fairly confident you're going to drown, you shouldn't wear one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mixed emotions on that. Because I don't think it won't be that hot. I don't think in the morning. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, agreed. It's not gonna be that hot in the morning, but I mean, the ambient, if it's gonna be high as in like the 90s, you got to imagine the dew point and the humidity is gonna be a little bit up there. And I mean, honestly, I'm just talking like fluid and sweat loss. Like if you're putting on your wetsuit, which most triathletes do like 10 minutes before, raised heart rate. And I think the biggest question you got to ask yourself, if you're a somewhat weaker swimmer, or you treat your wetsuit more, like a comfort thing, it just gives you comfort. And I get that, it gives you confidence to finish the distance. Totally get it. A lot of triathletes are like that. Is, to me, the biggest decision right here, not decision, but the biggest kind of input on what decision I'm going to make is what kind of flow am I getting? If I'm getting a ton of flow, right? If the flow is going to be high, and we're talking like Chat 70.3, old school Louisville, Augusta, Ironman California type current, that's going to make us like take 5 to 6 minutes off our time anyway, I'm not wearing it. I mean, period. There's no reason to wear it, because one, it's going to be hot the rest of the day, and you're going to have your core temp increase, your respiratory rate increase, heart rate increase, all that stuff increase before you're even done with the swim on a hot day. Plus, you're not even going to be in the water the amount of time you're normally in it to get the max benefit from the wetsuit. Right? That's why they say slower swimmers get the most benefit, one, because you need the most help with the body, but you're also in the water longer. And so, to me, if I'm like borderline wetsuit or no wetsuit, I'm checking the temp. I'm checking the flow. Give me an update from like Tommy Bonds, Robbie Krause, and they tend to always know like the answer to these things. What's the flow? Can we get a little flow check? And if it's going to be high, what's the point? I mean, you're not going to be in the water that long. So I would just save it. I think you're setting yourself up for. I mean, I was talking to an athlete before we went live, was doing a race in Chicago, and they were just talking about how absolutely hot it was going to be, and we kind of went over like, and we've talked about this before, like most of the, like in studies, heat strokes happen more in 5K and 10K runners than they do in half marathon runners, just because the rate in which they're running is so high, their core temp rises so quickly, they don't know they're at kind of this like emergency red alert level until it's too late. Versus longer course, your intensity level is lower, so you kind of get the warning signs, the alarm bells going off a little bit at a lighter level, you can kind of fend it off. And I told him, if it's going to be hot, like on the swim, I would just take it easy. Because let's say you give up, especially in the swim, right? It's like you put in extra effort to gain what, like 30 seconds on a short race. And you take that over a 10K, you're talking what, 5 seconds per minute mile? Which is, walking, that's an entirety of walking an aid station. And so like I would just think really, really carefully about, because to me it's like it's counterintuitive to the recommendation that I would give as a coach to an athlete is if it's going to be hot that day, then you should take like 2 big bottled waters that have been frozen or you got ice in it, and you should be cooling yourself the whole time before you even get in the water. Down the back of your neck, down the chest, ice cold water all morning long, keeping your core temp warm. Putting on a wetsuit is the absolute opposite of all that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's like how early do you put that on? To me, that's that's the decision. And I also think that if you are going to wear one, you got to start up, start as up far as possible. Mm-hmm. For me, it's like I agree. I would probably wear one just because of my swimming situation. I just feel a little more comfortable in it. But also, I just think you got to. Because the wetsuit does give you a little more. So I would obviously control the effort. You know what I mean? Because like you don't want to hammer in a wetsuit probably because you're not going to, because it is downstream. You just don't get that much advantage. It's just, I don't know. So I think there's a lot about when you put it on. And I love what you're saying about ice cold water in the wetsuit. I mean, you're almost trying to get cold in there before you get in it. And, if it's 70 some degrees in the morning, the water's upper like 75 or something like that. Yeah, that's a little warm, but I mean, I think for most people probably, because I just still remember starting sort of at the back of the Chattanooga swim once and getting in the wetsuit. People came, that was like the wetsuit brigade, and they just swam right over me. So I'm like, I just always realize that that they are a lot, quite a bit faster, I think. So I don't know. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, you're never going to know until you do it. But I mean, honestly, I would. Is there going to be a pre-swim? Do you know? That's not on the Ironman website. I was kind of looking through. Do you know if is there a practice swim? I can't imagine there is.
I doubt it. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if I'm trying to decide this, and you don't already know the answer, and you're just kind of waffling between, I would just do a simple exercise. I would put your heart rate monitor on. And I would stand there, and put your heart rate monitor on. I would walk briskly for 5 minutes with it on and see what your average heart rate is. And then I would let it come back down. And then I would put my wetsuit on and stand still for 5 minutes and see what heart rate is higher. I mean, I'd be really interested to see it because honestly, my money is on the wetsuit. My money is on wetsuit, and that's a higher heart rate and higher core temp when you're done. Yeah, I mean, listen, again, it's no matter what, I think people are going to think about, because it's a swim, they're thinking about how can I just get out of this leg? Even though it'll be a shorter, they're going to always, I think, go with, it's kind of the fight or flight thing. They're always going to go with what makes them feel the best and the most comfortable. And again, I won't argue with that, because there is a lot to be said for going into your race with a confident, comfortable mindset versus one that's like riddled with anxiety because all of a sudden you don't have your wetsuit. But then again, all the more reason to prepare in a way to where you don't feel like you're at the mercy of the random volunteer in the boat that has to make the decision. Do I dump ice in the water to make it cool enough, to where it's wetsuit legal, or do we just see what these triathletes are made of and leave it over and not have anybody do a wetsuit today?
Yeah, and another thing from a guy who's been up and down in his swimming career and everything like that, even though it's a downstream swim and all this other stuff. Do not take it lightly, because it's still, 2,000 yards or whatever. And I would say, if you've been working at your swim and or you feel pretty comfortable and confident in your swim, really just get up front, because to me, I don't know this for a fact, but my gut tells me there's going to be a ton of first timers in this race. So you kind of want to get out of that muck. You don't want to be in the back of that swim muck, nor do you want to be tangled up in that too much on the bike, and especially because it's a one loop course and you don't have to come back around. So that's just my, I just think there's going to be a lot of first timers, and it could get, gnarly in the back.
That's a really good point. And I totally agree with you. I hadn't thought about it, but I agree. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of first timers, which again, like takes us out of the swim. And again, when it comes to being cool, no matter what you decided in the swim, wetsuit or not wetsuit, the first thing you need to do, like I would have, for an Ironman, I always kind of like recommend, a goo before you even get on your bike. Just take that quick shot, get 100 calories ahead of the game. Quick. Like the long time ago, is just take like a half a water bottle, chug it down. They're 100 calories in the game, because once you get on the bike, the last thing you're going to want to do is try to get a gel down during the first 3 or 4 miles. It's so crowded. Everyone's like max squirrely on their bike. It's just not the safest time to do it. Or you're going to forget, or you're going to get caught up in keeping up with somebody else and keeping your time, your miles per hour. So, for the heat, it's kind of the same thing, but I'm having like a bottle of cold water with ice in it that I'm dumping down the back of my neck and on my chest as soon as I get out of the water. Immediately, especially if you wore a wetsuit. I mean, if you wore a wetsuit, I'd probably take a cold plunge just to get the cord tip all the way back down. No, just kidding. Just like, I would definitely take a water bottle that's cold, like ice cold. I would risk it with the biscuit. I would just freeze that bottle, leave it in T1. You're not going to be in the water for probably an hour and 15. You're not going to be out of the swim for 35. If it's going to be that warm, it'll be at least, a little bit, or just put a bunch of ice cubes in there. But I'm definitely cooling my face, my back of my neck, and my chest right out of the swim. And to me, like, again, like the name of the game, we always talk about Ironman and largely 70.3s is like, it's all about energy expenditure from the time you put your first fingertip in the water. Well, when it's going to be hot, and I think 70.3s honestly you're not out there as long, but I think it can get a little more dicey because you're eager to push a higher intensity rate. Like Ironman, you're like, I'm out here for a long day. All I got to do is keep things moderate, and I'm going to finish. I'm going to get through the day, and it's gone. But like 70.3, you're thinking about pushing it. You're going to hit, high zone 2, zone 3, some people zone 4. And you're like, that's when you start to get into that, not danger zone, because that's dramatic, but like to where you reach a tipping point of, is this too much for this mile? And I'm going to end up walking it in, trying to cool myself. Because again, once you overheat, there is no scenario where you can continue to move forward in any sort of a rapid rate and still drop your core temp. The only answer is to stop and walk or to sit. So when you think about like how the actions you need to take before that, it's, water and ice down after the swim. Every aid station you come to on the bike, every single one, which again, all the more reason we're the first ones in the water, first on the bike course. You want water and ice down your neck and on your quads and on your chest. Stay cool. Even if you're like, oh, it's only 65, I don't need it yet. I'm going to save all of 3 seconds, like slowing down, grabbing it and going. Because let's be honest, you're probably going to set up anyway in these, aid station zones. Because you got people like swerving over 17 different lanes. You stay on your left, so they swerve left. It's especially with a bunch of beginners who've probably been around the trainer, the entire last, 8 months.
And new volunteers.
Exactly, right? New volunteers who are probably going to be handing out water bottles with their feet. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get. And so I think, again, like get up, take your water, take the fluids in, ice things down. And I would do that every single station because, listen, not only going to be hot, but it's also likely going to be windy, which is going to trick you, especially in the headwind, of thinking, one, I'm not sweating that much. You got the headwind, again, like you're just not sweating that much because then you go the tailwind, you're sweating like profusely. So to me, you have three three scenarios. You got crosswind, tailwind, headwind. Two of those three are not ideal to having you cool yourself. And I'm not talking like, Texas coastal crosswinds here, but listen, crosswinds on the plains ain't no joke either. So you think about like what my fueling strategy is like, what my cooling strategy is like. Tailwind, I'm going to be going fast, right? So my rate of speed is going to be increased, but I'm not going to be getting the extra cooling from having, the wind in my face. So I'm going to be a little bit hot. Headwind, I'm having to work a little bit harder, but the wind is in the rate of speed I'm going plus the miles per hour. The wind is going to be drying the sweat off my face. So I'm not going to feel and kind of have those kind of like outside, kind of signals that are like, hey, hello, you can feel the sweat coming down your brow and your eyes. It's time to drink. It's kind of like it's like going to altitude. It's just a dry heat. That's why people get dehydrated so easily. So you're going to have that situation or you're going to have that crosswind situation where depending on how confident or non-confident you are, you're going to be getting a little bit of breeze. It's probably just about right. But you might be worried about taking both your hands off the bar because you're a little squirrely on the front end. So, I mean, I think like, and I'm not saying this to be like, again, like to scare anybody, but to me, this race reeks dehydration, poor fluid, poor fueling management choices. And honestly, like your fitness is irrelevant. If you make terrible pacing and fueling decisions, it doesn't matter what your fitness is. I mean, all races like this, and generally speaking, like all races in the summer, it's all about how smart you are. How smart, how patient can I be? How much running and what rate of speed can I run comfortably at, the speed that I want to the last 10K? Because if you can do that, guarantee you, plenty of people went into this race looking, especially first timers, looking like, I don't need to swim that much. It's a downstream swim. It's not that hard of a bike. It's going to be flat. And then it's going to be a pretty flat run. I'm going to crush this course. I'm going to go sub whatever. And then you look at the temps and you're like, well, fuck, this doesn't look like much fun at all. But you're still, all you've been thinking is, I didn't have to do that much this year because this course looks easy. We say it year round. There is no such thing as an easy race.
Yeah.
Ever.
No. And you make a great point. I think the heat, if you're listening to this podcast, I was telling my athletes this, is, it's going to be tough. And like you said, you got to be smart and patient and all these sorts of things. But the heat, that in that sense, the heat can be an advantage for you because, people that aren't thinking about this kind of stuff are going to do exactly what you just said and blow up and everything like that. And this is almost one of those perfect examples of what we talk about. If you think you're going too fast, you probably are, kind of thing, because especially out on the bike and, through that first half of that run is like, it all boils down to that last 10K, and those notches you're taking out of your belt in this type of weather when it's hot are going to be, sort of more exploitive in a sense. So I just think if you think you're going too fast, you probably are, and you should probably just pull it back depending on where you're at on the course. But in that last 10K, of course, is a different story. But I'm just saying, I think these things are a little more pronounced in heat. You know that feeling when you're just like, my breath's out of control. Everything's like, then it's way early. Those are things you really want to be careful about. And I was thinking about this bike course. I don't really know the roads, but I used to kind of work out there on Meridian Road. And I just remember that I think the story might be that it's going to be sort of this country road, false flat type of vibe out there, like kind of highways out in the country that might have longer, seemingly flattish roads, but they're actually going uphill a little bit. So that's my gut. I don't know how devastating any of these hills are going to be, but I think they're just kind of going to be lingering around the whole time. So it's just one of those things where you just really kind of want to watch it and see if you're mashing it, and maybe you don't think so or whatever. So that's really, I don't know. I don't have a ton on the bike course. I think that, the roads are probably going to be marginal is my guess. So be prepared for that. There are probably going to be some really nice sections, but there could be some, it's like really most bike courses. I wouldn't expect it to be super flat glass out there all the time. But other than that, it's a cool, it seems like a pretty cool loop. It goes through Rockton out there. When you're almost getting my hometown up in Beloit. but they don't quite get that far. But you kind of go through that little city of Rockton, which is a cool place. And I don't know, I haven't been on the course, so I don't know what part of it does. But other than that, you're going to kind of be out in the country. So it's just that patience game is going to come into play.
Patience and staying present. Like everyone gets like, I think has like a negative, connotation about courses like, we'll just use Wisconsin because you're always doing something, right? So you do have that like mental fatigue, I think, towards the end of the race, whether it's 70.3 or a full, of always having to make decisions, right? You're always making decisions. You're going up, you're going down. Your gears are up, you're going down. You're going right, you're going left. You got a pothole, you got not a pothole. You got people, you got descending, you got ascending. What choice am I making? You're always on. So you get this, decision-making fatigue that people just get tired of making. But on these like long country roads, that you got this, I think people get like to where they get not having to pay attention fatigue, to where they're used to, they just kind of get in their own zone. They're staring at their power meter. They kind of go off in the la la land because they got this giant straightaway, whether it's a headwind or a tailwind or a crosswind, where they're just not thinking. And then that's when you start to make huge mistakes. Like same thing when you see people on trail, you're asking for a simple zone 2 ride and they can't do it because they can't stay present at the moment. They're watching Netflix or they're going up and down in their zones or heart rate. Same thing happens in a race, right? But then you're veering left and you're veering right. I mean, you see people do it all the time in racing. You're like, how did that person even come close to hitting that cone? You got 8 feet. And you almost hit the cone on the dividing line. What were you thinking or not thinking, right? Or you veer over to the right in the rumble strips. Like, listen, 85-90% of these like accidents and stuff like that are they're on the athlete's fault for not paying attention and not riding it up outside. That's just the truth. So when you get out here and you got a lot of people and you don't have like this constant having to pay attention where kind of everyone's on high alert, you don't doze off, right? But you're not as, I just don't think you're as on it, and so things come at you by surprise and your pacing goes awry. So like when you're on the bike course, you've got to stay in the moment. I would highly suggest, setting an alert on your bike, every 5 minutes, every 3 minutes. And it doesn't even have to remind you of something specific. Just the beep alone brings you back to an attention where you might be drifting off with your mind. Right? Your power dropping or your power's going up, or you're focused on the group in front of you, or you're focused on the time or miles per hour, or what you're going to eat that night, or how great the finish line is going to be, or what race I'm doing next. Beep. You're like, oh shit, I'm back. I got to get back in the moment. What could be to drink, could be to anything, but like anything like that is just like, I think it's really important on these longer kind of like straightaway races where, again, like you make decisions that, impact your day, sometimes impact other people's day. And so, taking on the bike course again, you get off the bike, you dismount, hopefully, perfect dismounts, 10 out of 10, and then you roll through transition. And it is the same thing. Like, this is another question you usually get with fulls, but with hot 7.3s, you get it too, is like to carry a bottle or to not carry a bottle. It's the same. To me, it's the same as like the wetsuit thing. Carrying a bottle definitely raises heart rate and RP because you're carrying like a, 3-pound weight in your hand. But does the ability to stay cool keep you moving faster? And so, a lot of people think, oh, I need to carry a bottle with me. I think I'd recommend it. I think I'd recommend taking a bottle, a plastic bottle to start, nothing in it. You should be topped off from the bike. And then the first aid station you get to, I'm filling it up with ice and cold water. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that water bottle, and do it quickly. Like there's no reason to take forever doing this, right? Like you should be in and out of the aid station in 15 seconds doing everything that you need. And I would do it the first aid station. One, to kind of keep your heart rate under control, and to go ahead and walk for a second, because at some point, unless you're at like the top 5%, probably you're going to maybe either do a slow walk or walk through an aid station, kind of go and break that. So it's kind of like getting your first scratch in your brand new house or your new car. Like once it's scratched, it's scratched. And so, take the little walk break, fill up that bottle, ice and water. Because listen, if you fill it up with ice and water before the race starts, it's going to be lukewarm creek water by the time you get it. So the last thing you want to do is drink it. You're heading on the run course. So empty water bottle again. It won't feel heavy. right? It'll give you get used to carrying it. Nothing in it, so it's not going to weigh you down, not going to slow you down. You'll feel a little bit faster. And then first aid station, stop, get in your Coke, Gatorade, whatever they have on course, and then top off your, douse your head and your face and your neck and your chest with water and ice, and then top off that water bottle, and then get moving. And that way, in between the aid stations, you can either use that bottle to cool yourself. That's my problem with carrying nutrition. It's a one-hit wonder. You're not going to be using your condensed version drink of Martin to cool yourself down, right? You're not going to spray that in your face. You're not doing it. So you're carrying around this weight to carry around extra calories. Like, to me, I want water that I can do two things with. I can cool myself down, and I can also hydrate, and then take on your calories at the aid stations when and if you need them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing I used to do is, I haven't done a 70.3 in a while, but I used to bring a full big Ziploc bag full of ice and put it in a little shoulder cooler, and it would be nice and melted by the time I got off the bike, and it would be a lot of water, and it would be like a bucket challenge or whatever they did, and I would just dump that whole thing, and it would just completely change my mindset coming off the bike, because you got that sweaty kind of humid kind of salty feel, and you just dump that whole thing over you. But I don't get it on your shoes, but it feels it's like a shock treatment almost. It just kind of snaps you out of that windy heat wave. So yeah, I'm back and forth on this. Yeah, so you're carrying like a handheld water thing. Yeah, I mean, that's good. I can't. Yeah.
I mean, I totally forgot about the Ziploc bag too thing, because in between aid stations, if you're not going to carry a bottle, it's like not your jam. And I sure as hell wouldn't recommend carrying a Camelback. Like, I mean, I don't know how you could feel any hotter. You might as well wear a swim cap when you run. Is to carry ice in your hands while you run. It is scientifically proven to lower RPE and keep your core temp warm. Hands and groin. Just be careful about the kind of ice you put down there. But hands keeping because it'll melt after about, I don't know, half mile. You'd be shocked at how quickly it melts. But again, to me, if I'm carrying something on board, it better be useful in a variety of ways. Like, if I'm carrying a handheld, I don't want all this fabric and shit that's bouncing around, causing me to chafe. It's extra weight, and it's only stuff that I can take in as calories. Because then I can't use it to cool myself, and I can't use it to hydrate. I mean, that's my issue too with like some of these condensed drinks on the bike. Is like, you get stuck with these, and what if you get to the point to where you're dehydrated, but you're also full? Well, what are you gonna do? Right? I'm dehydrated. I need more fluid and sodium probably. I don't need more calories, right? Because I'm having GI issues, and I'm hot. Well, now you're fucked. Because what are you gonna do? Dump a bottle of Tailwind over the top of your head that's already probably lukewarm? No, you're stuck. You got no plain water on board. You got nothing to cool yourself with. You got no ice to cool yourself with. So again, either ice in the hands, and the Ziploc bag is great too, because then you can fill it up and rub it around your chest. Sponges, take those sponges. Unzip your top. One sponge on the right, one sponge on the left. Ditch them at the last aid station. Keep them there. And before the race, make sure. Take a little body glide, your sports stick, and lather up those pecs or the chests. It's because putting a sponge on there, then you can just leave them there or swap them out. You probably get a little bit of chafe, but whatever, it's worth it's worth it. But it's just all about staying cool. All those things are just like very, very small things that you can do over and over and over and over again to keep cool. And I think hat's the other biggest choice people have to make. If you're a hat wearer. Some people like wearing a hat, keeps the sun off your face, but some people, the hat makes them feel hot. Having like no heat escape from, kind of like the bill kind of keeps the heat trapped. It's an RPE thing. And here's the thing, is you should already know this by now.
Mm-hmm.
None of these things should be brand new, and that's like, sometimes you have to tell athletes like this, we shouldn't be having this conversation. You should already know this. You should think through these scenarios as you're training, and when you're worried about reading Facebook pages and, comparing your 30-minute run that you did today from 2 years ago on the same route, and there's a small variance in, your heart rate. Spend that time on these like details. Wearing a hat, like even the wetsuit thing I talked about. Take a 5-minute brisk walk, see what your heart rate is, and then just stand still for 5 minutes with your wetsuit on and see what your heart rate does. I mean, it's all these things. Again, they're not flashy, they're not sexy, and nobody cares about them, right? But they're gonna we put in so much training and so much effort and time and sacrifice and money, right, to do these races, and then we don't pay attention to like the really easy stuff that costs nothing but our time. No energy, right? You're not going out and doing a threshold workout. I mean, honestly, and maybe it's just me, but like if I ask my athletes, like, hey, would you rather spend an hour and a half or hour and 10 on the trainer knocking out a threshold interval, or or would you rather spend an hour and a half researching and trying out, how to change a tire, wetsuit or no wetsuit, handheld or no handheld? They'd pick the threshold workout.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but like you're gonna get done with the race, you're gonna think, God, I got so hot, man, I wish I would won this. It's not gonna be, dude. Man, I'm telling you, that Tuesday back in May where I kind of skipped it on that threshold, came back to bite me today.
Yeah.
Got me. All right. I missed my PR because no, it's going to be because you ruined your race by horrible pacing or terrible preparation. Like if you put in the work, right, with your body and you ask and all these things of it, you demand so much of it, go that extra mile, right? And take care of the small things. I'm telling you. And that was the only kind of piece of confidence, not confidence, but like the comfort I had when you and I did Louisville that year when I was fresh out of treatment. I'll never forget that photo of your mom with like the thermometer on her back that was reading like 110, 115. I was so happy because I knew that I had like no expectations going into the race already. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't going to overpace it. I wasn't chasing a miles per hour. I was just chasing the finish line. But what that also kind of gave me confidence was that all these people, I already at least know I'm going to be real patient. I got no expectations, no time goals, just to finish. It was just going to be, kind of a celebration. And that I knew I could be smart while doing it because all I wanted to think about was being smart, not hitting a pace, hitting a watt, hitting a goal, hitting a time. Because when you have those things at the forefront, again, our ego and things that makes it allows us and provides more opportunities for us to make really stupid decisions. And so if you go into this race, like I know it's hard because I do it too, right? We both do it. It's like, but it's hard to just shift those away and just think, I can outsmart everybody because most coaches will tell you at 70.3s that are hot and can be fast, and then Ironman, it's not about how fit you are, it's about how few mistakes you make. That's what allows you to rise to the top. And we see it in cold weather too. We saw it, watching all those athletes leave Ironman Louisville that one year when it was cold. The top end athletes coming first out of the water. It was 45 degrees. They were leaving with basically tighty whities on and a napkin on their chest. And they came right back on the bus 35 minutes later because they didn't want to take 2 minutes, right, to put on arm warmers or a vest. So it's the same thing, right? When it's hot, it's just different things you have to do to pay attention. So you can we do, and that's what we do the podcast, right? To hopefully allow you guys, talk through things with you guys to get the most out of all the effort you put into your own training.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's all I got, man. Play smart. Be patient.
The one thing I did want to note, we talked about it a little bit before. If you look at from a course standpoint, going all the way back to the swim, because the run is just turns and downtown. It's going to be hot. Take the advice we gave. There's no strategy, in that. I will be anxious to hear about the finish line, the experience. Shoot me some pictures. But on the swim, if you look at the graph, right, of they have for the route, they have it hugging the shore you enter on, but then you finish on the other side of the riverbank. And again, if the flow is high, if you look at the route, and you don't know if that's going to be the exact route they're going to have with the buoys. If you're taking that route, because you're going left to right, you're going downstream. If it is that kind of curve and it's a strong current, you're going to have to swim way more. You don't want to aim for that turn buoy to go straight in the other bank, because if this current is really, really strong, it's going to push you underneath that. To kind of just go for a fade. Aim for 10 to 15 feet, meters, whatever, to the right of that buoy, and just swim straight and let the current slowly bring you to that. Because I'm telling you, if you try to take that too tight and the current is too strong, you're going to get pushed inside that buoy on the other side of the bank, and then you're going to have to put in a lot of effort to go back upstream against the same current that just had enough current to push you underneath the buoy to get up and around it. So don't hug those too tight. I mean, again, a corner buoys are the most important buoys. So check the water. It just kind of get a good idea of the flow. Reach out to Robbie Krause and Tommy Bonds. They usually have those answers. But yeah, take that smart, because again, like regardless of wetsuit or not, if you take that too sharp and you get pushed into the inside, it could be a non-ideal start to your day.
Yep, that's good advice. And yeah, I think the finish line might be kind of all right, and I know what it is. It's like it used to be sort of a pedestrian street that was closed off. I think it might have been reopened, but there's like, little shops around there and a couple of restaurants and stuff like that. So I think it'll be all right. I like how they did it.
What are you charging for selfies this weekend?
No charge, man.
No charge? Free? Shit, I might take a drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hit up Mike for some freebies.
Well, free selfies, but you got to buy like a water bottle or something.
There you go. I love it. It always comes with it. But yeah, and then if you got other races this weekend, best of luck. Best of luck to everybody doing Rockford. Again, show them a little bit of grace. I'm not sure who the RD is, but first year races always have a little bit of kinks to be worked out. Second year is always a little bit better usually, but enjoy yourself, have fun. As always, if you need anything, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. There's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, dude. I will catch you later and keep you posted.
Yeah, man. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks.
See you, dude.